Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Geospatially Africa Podcast, the podcast for the African geospatial community. My name is Iniobong Benson.
My name is Opeyemi, and thank you for being here. We appreciate you, and we hope you have an awesome time with us today.
So, in this episode, we'll be talking about why we started the Geospatially Africa Podcast, who we are, our background, and we also introduced the new news section, which is going to be a feature of this podcast moving forward. So before we get started, we want to take this time out to thank all our listeners and those who have subscribed to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed and you're listening, please do well to subscribe on any platform that you get your podcast. Also, we would like to hear from you. So if you have a feedback, you can send us an email to geospatially@gmail.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Geospatially Africa. We'll be so happy to hear from you. So let's get started. Hi, Opeyemi.
Hi, Ini.
So good to have you. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so happy that you're here with me today.
Likewise. It's a pleasure to be part of this awesome initiative, and I can't wait to get started.
Yeah. So what we do today is to just talk about our background and why we started this podcast, and then we go into introducing the news section, which is going to be quite amazing.
We hope that our listeners can learn about the recent happenings in the geospatial community, from conferences to events to new technology updates and things that you could look forward to. For example, in today's news section, we'll be talking about everything from the Esri User Conference to State of the Map Conference, all those interesting tidbits that our listeners would like to know about. And thankfully, Ini was in two of those conferences, so he would also be giving us highlights from them. So in case you were not able to be part of it, please stay tuned. You'll be listening to that later in this podcast.
So now I want to start by kicking off and saying that the question I always ask is always most times to the guest is, how did you get into geospatial? And for me, so I studied geoinformatics and surveying in school, so that was a little background in geospatial. But at the time, I didn't quite see the relationship, right? So in my third year, that's when we got introduced to GIS proper, and at first it seemed a little bit abstract, because I think that's one of the issues that sometimes in school you're not taught the practical aspects of the subject matter, so it's always the theoretical, so you can't seem to see how it fits into the whole scheme of things. But I mean, with the curiosity, I had to try and find my way, learn things, go online, find a course to learn, and that that desire for knowledge kept burning. And here we are in the Geospatially Africa podcast, talking about geospatial stuff, and that's that fire keeps burning. So that was how I started for me. So how about you, Opeyemi?
So for me, it was a slightly different journey. Yeah, in the sense that although I also studied geography in uni, and yes, I was introduced to GIS in my third year as well. But unlike you, I finished uni a couple of years back, and I basically went into other career paths. Other things caught my fancy, like HR and business development, and I just went into that. So my journey back into GIS and geospatial happened as a result of one of the positions I held at one of my previous workplaces was that was at a real estate firm. And one of the positions I held as a business development manager there exposed me to some of the challenges that the real estate industry was facing, especially due to natural disasters, or sort of natural disasters like flooding, flooding, which is a recurrent issue in Nigeria yearly, every single year. I just got thinking about, what can be done, to mitigate, these losses that, real estate developers were, recording, and, especially due to a lack of information, in certain areas. And, during the course of my research, I got to know about certain strides that developed countries were making, certain things that they put in place, and how GIS and remote sensing was aiding or was helping them to prepare for such disasters. For example, in the UK now, there's a database on flood vulnerability, in different aspects of the country, and people are aware these things are out there, and they're powered by GIS and geospatial thinking and locational intelligence and remote sensing. And I just it got me thinking, and I was like, oh, I've done this in school, in university. I was basically introduced to the rudiments of it, but I didn't follow through on it. And so while researching and discovering all these interesting, amazing things that could be done with something that I already had an introduction to, it got me like more interested. It sparked my curiosity in trying to develop or like develop myself to an extent that I could prefer solutions in this aspect. And although my research was kind of personal, and it was just me trying to be curious about what can be done to solve this problem, but this sort of went to the next step or the next level during the COVID-19 pandemic, and when it started, early last year, that's 2020, in Nigeria. And we were asked to we were asked to stay back. We couldn't go to work as usual, and we found that there was so much time on our hands, and that was when I had time to really explore all these things that I was thinking about slightly. This period was it really served as a sort of reawakening for me. It sparked my interest in trying to develop my geospatial thinking as well as GIS skills, remote sensing skills. These things, learning all I could, using the time productively to learn all I could to expand my network, and to be involved in the community, in the geospatial community. And this period was actually quite amazing for me because, there's numerous resources out there. There's so many things out there that all you need to do is be curious. You will get people that want to teach you, that want to let you know how it is, and you get introduced to certain people as we go on in the podcast, and as we get to know about ourselves, as we get to learn more about you, our listeners, as well as you knowing more about us. We'll share our stories and how, we'll talk more on how we really came into this. And one thing or one factor that I would really say played a huge, influence in where I am now or where I'm coming from, is the people I've met on this journey. And, all you need to do, like when you need to know about something, or when you need to be to develop yourself in something, just reach out. There's so many people out there that would really want to help, to guide you, and to let you know that, okay, this thing can be done. This is your vision. I believe in it, and I want to see it succeed. So, all you need to do is to have the passion, to be curious, and to ask, to ask questions, to meet people virtually or otherwise. And here we are talking about, geospatial and everything about it in Africa and for Africans. And, I couldn't be more happier. I couldn't be happier to be doing this. Talk about GIS and its possibilities for Africa and in Africa. It's just amazing.
I think that's really quite interesting, and that was quite a journey for you. And I mean, although we took different parts, but here we are in the meeting point. Still pursuing our careers, and I think that's really amazing. All right, so that brings us to the next item. So, what are you currently doing, and what are your goals for for the future in your career?
So, having only re-entered in just over a year, I'm still sort of in the learning phase. Although to an extent, I could say that my GIS skills has highly improved. And I've tried as much as possible to learn as much as I can within this period. And I've also had the privilege of being part of organizations and communities where I get to contribute, especially in terms of the passion I have concerning disaster management and disaster risk mitigation. So currently, I volunteer with various organizations from that deal with mapping, cartography to remote sensing, and well, at this stage, I could probably say that, one of the organizations that I belong to that's doing amazing stuff in understanding flood vulnerabilities and susceptibility of Nigerian locales and communities. So I volunteer with this organization and have been learning as well as contributing to making basically my passion, what helped me, what pushed me into this profession, to trying to achieve it, basically to actualize it in Nigeria. One amazing thing that I really appreciate about the opportunity that was given to me is that I met some amazing people. One of them is Iniobong here. I met him through this initiative, through this community, and that's one of the things that I really like to reiterate about the GIS profession and industry within and outside Africa is the fact that community is very important. Especially as somebody that's just growing in the profession, it's very, I think it's pertinent to belong to supportive communities that talk about your vision, that align with your goals and where you see yourself and what you want to do. And the fact that through belonging to these communities, you learn a lot, as well as you actually are active in contributing to the cause that you are passionate about. It's been amazing, really. And I also volunteer with organizations that are into cartography and designing maps for NGOs. And no, that experience has also been amazing for me because I've got to I've got to develop my cartography skills, not just by learning but actually applying what I've been learning. And that's also something I would like to I'm an advocate for volunteering. It's very important. You don't just think of, oh, I must get money for this. Oh, now I know how to use this skill. Now I must start making money. Sometimes you need to develop the skills, and it's not just enough to have maybe some personal projects that you're doing. It also helps, where you when you're exposed to, corporate work. Like corporate work, you're not getting paid for it, but you are sort of like an internship. So you're learning, you're learning how to develop your skill, how to apply your skill, as well as how to communicate with the corporate bodies, with the organizations and their management. So that's what I'm doing now. I work at my full-time job, and yes, thankfully that also has something to do with maps. So I also work with maps, and I work with the locational intelligence as well at my job. And I also volunteer, and I also belong to communities. So everything revolving around me currently, is just targeted at, developing my GIS skill, as well as contributing to the causes that, I am passionate about. And I'm very grateful for that, all within Africa. And that's one thing that I feel a lot of people don't know, is that the industry in Africa, the GIS and geospatial industry in Africa is vibrant. It's vibrant, and it's full of people that want to do stuff, that want to solve problems, and all you just have to do is just reach out. LinkedIn, social media, Twitter, everywhere. And there's no discrimination. Nobody looks at you like, oh, you're from Africa, oh, you're from here, you don't know anything. No, it's not like that at all. It's like people just have to see how passionate you're about stuff, and they are just ready to help. They're just ready to help. And also, one lastly, personally, another goal that I'm working towards is developing my GIS programmer skills, or what you call GIS developer skills, because I also noticed that, in the course of my learning, I've been, trying to work with the softwares, understand how to use the ArcGIS suite, understand how to use QGIS and other Phosphor-G, softwares and stuff. But one thing I've also realized is that the present and the future of GIS has to do mainly with programming. Like You can't really, in my opinion, and I'm not discrediting anybody now, but in my own opinion, what GIS is today, and even in the opinion of a lot of employers in the GIS industry, is that you have to like be learned, be versatile with programming languages, GIS programming using languages such as Python, such as R, and other good stuff like that. Even the future of GIS softwares deal with you actually programming. Gone are the days where all you have to do is to be a proper GIS professional. Is you just know how to operate this software and that software and you're good to go. But today and in the future, everything is programming these days. Coding is very important. And for me, as somebody that coding doesn't really come naturally to me. Iniobong, maybe you had it maybe easier, or it was sort of easier for you because probably you did tech, right? You did geomatics, but I studied geography in social sciences. So it doesn't. I've never been in tech. I didn't do all the tech stuff growing up. So I just have to start learning. And I know there are a lot of people in my shoes in this industry. We're all just trying to learn and be up to date. And I'll definitely be sharing my journey as I go on. So basically, the highs and lows in my journey, I intend to share it all with us. So we all, and you could also reach out to us, if you are having similar thoughts, or if you're in the same or in similar journeys as well. We would like to really hear from you. So, there are so many resources. In fact, a plethora of resources exist that teach you coding for free, teach you everything in whatever language you want. And there's so many resources out there. So curating those resources to know which one works for you best, which one is better for you. All these things are things that as we move on in the podcast, from time to time we could just talk about it, like the challenges we might be facing in learning, the interesting platforms that you could use that worked for me or that worked for you, Amy, or all those interesting things. So basically, that's all one of the reasons what we try to achieve, or what we hope to achieve with this podcast. To just be that that podcast, the African centric podcast that understands, that we understand the journey, we understand the challenges that will be involved, and we just try to help each other along the way, whilst also showcasing amazing talent, right?
Yeah, I think that's really great. That's yeah, nice. So for me, I'm currently working. During the pandemic, that's just when I finished up school, and I got a job, a consulting job with one of my lecturers, and it was really an eye opener for me. So I started applying what I learned, and I was learning alongside that. And after that, I got another job, and that's what I'm currently doing. And it's been a learning moment as well for me. So you continue to grow in your skill, your analytical skills, and being able to think spatially. There's this thing about spatial thinking, and you continue to grow in that area. Like you said, the future is tech, right? You have to be ready for whatever is coming. So it's not always about clicking and seeing what the result is, but you need to understand how does this work. So what happens if this software doesn't work? Can you understand how to do the analysis without the software? So there's a need to actually understand what goes on under the hood most time. I mean, at least for me, it's something I'm curious about, and one way to do that is to understand how programming works. Which, by the way, it's something I have been doing. I'm actually working on my projects. The community is important for me as well. That's something I care about. I belong to different communities in Africa because that's where you get to meet people, you get to talk about the way forward. How can we grow the industry in our continent, in our countries as well? And you get to listen to people talk about their ideas and what you're doing, and that inspires you. So for me, community is really important, and I want to continue to be a part of this community and continue to drive the growth of the industry forward. And yeah, that's the goal for me. That's what I'm currently doing as well.
Okay, so you mentioned something about community, and that's to me is very important aspect of the geospatial industry, especially in Africa, because you'd notice that community really is everything. Belonging to different organizations, initiatives, and communities is what really brings us together, and helps us grow in the industry. And the fact that the African geospatial industry is still in its very young stage, you know what it is now, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential in the industry currently, and the hopes for the African geospatial community in a few years' time is that it grows, is that the countries in Africa and the continent as a whole learn to appreciate the benefits of spatial intelligence, of geospatial thinking, and to embrace the products and the possibilities that would come from it. What do you think, Ini?
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, like you said, the industry is still growing, and I think we're also seeing people doing amazing things. We're seeing more innovations coming out of Africa and more solutions as well. And these innovations are, I think the way they are structured is to solve Africans' problem, right? So I think that's really key. Some countries have really adopted, just special technology, and what the hope is that we see more countries, jumping on this trend to adopt this technology to solve your problems. For example, look at the period that we are now. There's so much rain. There's so much natural disaster going on, and you would see on Twitter that a lot of people suggesting that there should be that integration of just special technology to solve this problem, so that you can have earlier warning systems. We could predict some of these issues so that we can help the people that are suffering from this to mitigate some of these problems. And I think these problems could be reduced with just special technology. And I think if governments can actually start adopting these solutions, that will really go a long way. And this is the things we hope to see in the future, not so distant future, but very soon. And we hope that each country in Africa actually adopts this technology. And we as a community, like you said, should be able to push this forward and see what we can get out of this.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I think also that because of this growth as well, there has been a need to keep the community updated with what's going on. And I think it's really exciting to have this podcast. I mean that's one of the reasons that we started this, so that we can give people that front row seat to what's going on, right? So the podcast is basically for the just special community in Africa, talking about what's going on in Africa generally. But however, we also talk about what's going on in the just special community at large, because the industry is a worldwide one, right? So it's not just centered in Africa or some place in the world. It's the whole world. So the plan also is to talk about what's going on elsewhere in the world and see how we can tailor that kind of solution down to solve our own problems here in Africa.
Sure, sure. And one of the reasons why I really think this podcast is coming at the right time is the fact that the future is tech, and Africa has no choice but to get on board with it. And one of the ways that we could definitely do that is increasing geospatial awareness, increasing the use and application of geospatial technology, understanding locational intelligence, and applying it to solving our problems. So ways that we can do this especially is through increased awareness in geospatial, in everything geospatial. And that's what this podcast, one of the reasons why this podcast is coming at the right time, because this podcast is aimed at increasing geospatial awareness, bringing the news about the community, the technologies, everything geospatial to the African community.
Great. So apart from that, the podcast is also that aimed at showcasing just special talents in Africa to the world. We want to talk about digital earth and building capacity building, and it's also a place to encourage others, the next generation of just special professionals, because we also hope to bring guests who maybe students, maybe along their career, or maybe in their early stage of their career, to talk about how they got started and how what they're hoping to see in the future and how that can inspire others to action. That would be a great thing to look out for. And most importantly, this podcast is made by Africans for Africa. So, like we said, it's the podcast for the geospatial community in Africa and across the world. So, it's something that we are very excited about, and we hope that our listeners are also excited as we are for this podcast. And we would like to take this time out to ask you to share this podcast with your friends, your colleagues, and everyone around the world who may be interested in knowing what's going on in the geospatial community and how geospatial can help them solve their own problem and how they can apply the technology to make the world a better place.
Yes, definitely. So that also brings us to the fact that everybody and anybody can listen in. So whether you're a student in geography or geospatial or geomatics, whether you are a professional that uses geospatial or GIS technologies once in a while or often, whether you are a geospatial expert, a GIS developer, or whether you are hoping to be, this podcast is what to listen to. Whether you're African and you want to know about geospatial in Africa.
Yeah.
So the future is tech. What I usually say is that GIS is the fusion between technology, IT, and geography. So my passion for geography started way before I even got to uni, right? And I noticed that since the future is tech, I have a passion for geography. Yeah. So GIS equals geography plus tech. So basically, I fit in. It's like, that square peg in the square hole kind of moment. And, that's where I am. And, it's just amazing. It's amazing. And I can't be happier. Really. I really can't. And, talking with you, Ini, hosting a podcast, talking about this. I know you can sense the excitement in my voice. Yes, you'll be hearing a lot of more of me, especially in the coming months. And, please feel free to reach out to us through our platforms on Twitter, on wherever you get a podcast from, even on email. Like, if you have anything, just shoot us comments, suggestions on who you think we should host. But free and open to suggestions. If you even would like to feature on the podcast, you could just shoot us an email, or shout us out on social media, and we'll be glad to have you with us. Yes, and that brings us to the news section. Now, this section will be dedicated to talking about everything that is to know about the geospatial industry in Africa and beyond, in terms of events, news conferences, social gatherings, interesting happenings, basically everything that goes on in the industry that we feel will be beneficial or you would like to hear or know about. Even suggestions from our listeners and you, the listener, suggestions, everything that you could want to throw at us. Basically, it's going to be like the gist section of the podcast, where we just talk about everything geospatial that has happened between the last episode and the current episode. So basically, within the course of a month, thereabouts, every interesting thing that has happened in the world of geospatial we bring to you right here, and it's going to be in the news section, and it will be a constant feature in every single podcast episode. First of all is the State of the Map conference. that happened between the 9th and 11th of July, so it's in the past.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting conference to be a part of. I actually, enjoyed most of the talks. They were really amazing talks. I think one of the difficult thing was trying to, fit your time between all the talks. But I think I was really able to attend the one that, I had time to. For example, there was this talk about 3D rendering with OSM to World. I didn't know anything about that platform, but, that talk was really interesting. And they were, apart from talks, they also had a panel session where people get to sit around talk about an interesting topic. For example, one about ethical mapping with and for people living with vulnerability, and I think that was really interesting. Another one that was quite interesting and people were looking forward to was about page open editing, open data sets, and AI mapping tools. And I think it was really interesting to get to hear people who have experience really talk about these issues.
Oh, sounds interesting. Fact, from the way you're saying it, like I'm kind of second guessing why I wasn't part of that. But thankfully, State of the Map Africa conference is coming up later this year. Hoo-hoo.
Yep.
It will be coming up between November 19th and 21st. If I remember correctly, the call for papers has ended. I think it ended a week ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the State of the Map conference, there'll be exciting panels, discussions on everything OSM for Africa and by Africans. And so I definitely won't be missing that in EU.
No, I of course I'll be take her from row six.
Exactly, exactly. And also, this is the right time to mention that we already had an episode talking about State of the Map Africa conference. That's actually the previous episode, the June episode. So if you have not listened to that, do well to catch that. We'll also be linking it in the show notes. So please check it out and give it a listen. The next event that we'll be talking about in this new session is the Esri User Conference that happened also in July. July was very eventful for geospatial.
Yeah, it was really.
Yeah. So Esri User Conference, like we all know, is like the go-to event for everything Esri, ArcGIS, ArcMap, everything going on in the Esri network and community. And this year's theme revolved around creating a sustainable future with GIS. It happened between 12th and 15th July. And also, our very own Ini was part of that. Yeah, so Ini, could you just tell us a few things that went on?
Yeah, of course. I think it was really, really interesting. This year with COVID, everything happened online. It was virtual. With conferences, one of the issues is always having time to, be available to watch or attend all the different sessions. But I was able to actually catch the ones that interested me. For example, the ArcGIS Enterprise getting started is something I'm quite interested in because of my work. I was able to watch it there and it was really quite interesting. There were other topics like ArcGIS, field maps, and stuff like that. I think it was really a fun time and to see different user presentations and maps from different people. I think that was quite an interesting one. And they did well with the conference that was online. I think it was good.
So that's one benefit. The fact that it's now virtual means more people can join in at a lesser fee. And that's one thing that I've really noticed and appreciate about the conferences that have been happening this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's true.
that's very commendable.
All right. So the next event that we are expecting this year is the Force 4G conference that was supposed to be held in Buenos Aires, and is also happening virtually online. And it's going to be on September 27th to October the 3rd of this year. And I think one interesting thing here is the theme for the conference.
Yeah, the theme for this conference is called Hell or High Water. I really want to know the reason, the thought behind that tagline. So I'll definitely be part of this conference and will be updating you as it goes in case you won't be able to join. There's a little registration fee.
Yeah, it's actually a paid conference, but you could attend a workshop for free. We are going to add the link to the workshop on the show notes as well, so that you can register for that. Another interesting thing is that on the website, which we're going to share on the show notes, it shows you the countdown. So to like from by today, we have 64 days, 10 hours, 12 minutes, and right now is 15 seconds left for the conference.
Great. Thank you for that, Ini. So we'll be talking now on QGIS, which is like the major free and open source software that a lot of people use. And QGIS new version is out. The QGIS 3.20 version just came out recently. And for QGIS fans and for free and open software fans like myself,
Yeah.
we're really looking forward to the updates and to everything that's going on with QGIS now. That's exciting news, really. Imi, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's really great. I think one interesting thing, and of course, if you use QGIS a lot, you see that each version is named after maybe a city, in the world. For example, this version is called the Odense. That's a city in Denmark. Found a way to pronounce that name. So yeah.
Oh yeah. So like I remember my first introduction to QGIS and it was A Coruña then. It's actually a city in Spain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you: are you the one type of user that downloads the newest version, or are you the type that sticks to the long term release?
I think I tried to download the newest versions, but then I noticed that there are some functionalities that were very convenient for me in the previous version. So I currently have at least 3 versions of QGIS on my system. I'm that kind of person. So whichever one I'm comfortable with at the time, depending on what I'm working on, I'll just use.
Great.
The recently concluded QGIS Open Day was dedicated towards everything graphical modeler. And so basically, if you're familiar with ArcGIS Model Builder, this is something very similar to that. And, the fact that that has come to free and open source QGIS is amazing. So, yes, if you were part of the open day, you would know more about what the graphical modeler is about and its functionalities and how to basically use it, apply it. But if you couldn't catch it, if you were not part of it, the recording is available on YouTube and we'll be linking that in the show notes. So please do give it a watch. Click on the link and just you'll be directed to the YouTube page for QGIS Open Day. Last but not least, on today's episode of the podcast and in the new session especially, we'll be talking about the OSM Africa Monthly Mapathon. So basically, it's the monthly mapathon organized by the OSM Africa team, and every month a different part of Africa, basically a different country, is focused on and mapped digitally. So I think in July it was Nigeria was mapped. So for August, the focus will be on Tanzania, and it will be happening on August 6th or 2021. So if you want to be part of it, you could just click on the registration link, which we'll be putting in the show notes, and basically register to be part of it. All you need, as usual, is a good steady internet connection and a laptop, and basically your digital mapping skills, and you would get to map a part of Tanzania.
That brings us to the end of the news section and the end of this month's podcast.
So thank you once again for joining in on today's episode of Geospatially Africa Podcast. I hope you enjoyed all that we've brought to you. Please don't forget to join us on our social media handles. We look forward to hearing from you. You could reach us via email at gspatially@gmail.com, as well as our Twitter at Geospatially Africa.
If you know about anybody doing something amazing in Africa, do well to connect us with the person so we can have them on our show. Thank you.
Bye.